What do you think is the biggest of these recruiting stories right now to talk about, Justin?
I don't know if there would be one in particular that's bigger than the others. I think it's interesting getting a lot of these 2026 quarterbacks on campus. Talked to Will Griffin yesterday out of a Jesuit high school in Tampa, Florida. He visited during junior day, 6'2.5", about 6'3", 225, big traditional prototype looking passer. He's going to be on campus. He's been talking to AJ Milwee. Grant Smith from Spring Grand Oaks talked to Eric yesterday. He looks like he's going to be coming in. Dia Bell, Raja Bell's son, remember the NBA guard that always gave Kobe Bryant fits? His son, Dia Bell, plays at American Heritage down in Fort Lauderdale. On3's Chad Simmons reported this morning that he's going to be on campus in a couple of months. And so, to me, the biggest one is Michael Fasusi, the five-star offensive tackle out of Louisville. He had told me a few days ago he was scheduling it in the next month or so. He didn't have a date for sure. This morning we confirmed he does have a date. He will be in Austin on April 9th. That's big because he's probably priority number one on the offensive line board. And so we know how Kyle Flood likes to go large human hunting, and Fasusi is one of those that you're trying to catch.
Yeah, large humans, very important at any level of football, but they feel even more important with the move to the SEC. What about the defensive line, Justin? That's obviously a question that Longhorn fans have about the current team with Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat going pro. But you know, Alfred Collins is a fifth-year guy. He's gone after this year. Vernon Broughton, a fifth-year guy. He's gone after this year. Feels like Texas didn't do a great job, and part of this is because Bo Davis left and they needed a new D-line coach. But Texas did do a great job with this recruiting class of 2024 and adding D linemen. Are there some big names that Texas is going to be in the mix for on the defensive front for next year?
Yes, absolutely. You guys know the rules. You're headed to this SEC, so you better stock up on the offense and defensive lines. It's bully ball in that conference, and they will run down your throat until you stop them. And how do you do that? Texas had one of the best run defenses in the nation last year. And you got to give a lot of credit to those two monsters in the middle. Our own Charlie Williams went and hung out with him yesterday. He went and saw T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. Dude, Sweat looks like he's down 50, 60 pounds. Okay, you got to go to Inside Texas and check that out. This guy looks tremendous. He didn't want to weigh at the Senior Bowl, probably because he was probably hovering around 4 bills. And now he's getting a little bit back down to game shape. He looks tremendous. That type of frame and body is what gets you into the first round. So Texas has to continue that. They got to carry that over into their first year in the SEC. How are they going to do it? Like you said, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Sadir Mitchell, Teola Sevilla from Arizona has been impressing in winter workouts. That is a professional, intense guy. I think he's going to be big. But what about 2025? This will be the cycle that determines this will be Kenny Baker's first cycle, if you think about it. This is going to be his first round with it. And so there's two guys on the top of the board that are must-gets, and that's Zion Williams out of Lufkin and Dylan Battle out of Mansfield Timberview. And not to mention keeping Brandon Brown, the EU Galley out of Melbourne, Florida, defensive tackle that's committed to Texas currently. He's supposed to be coming back in late March with his 7-on-7 group. So Kenny Baker has his work cut out for him. This is going to be his first stamp. He wants to build some skins on the wall. That's what these young, energetic coaches do. And for him to do that, he's going to have to grab some of these guys. It starts with Zion and Dylan. You got to get both of those two guys on the board. Zion, 6'5", about 315, 320. He's in theater. He plays Santa Claus. The dude is an all-A student. He has got the biggest smile in the state of Texas, and he's got Texas, LSU, and A&M all in the mix. Dylan Battle, I went and hung out with last week. Another guy that's got Michigan, where his father's from. He's got Texas. He's got TCU. He's got Texas A&M. He's got a few other schools in the mix as well. So for the D-line to really restock in 2025 cycle, and look, they're going to have to take, in my opinion, at least 4. I mean, they got Alex January and they got Melvin Hills coming over from this 2024 cycle. But in this next one, guys, I think it's going to go 4 deep, and it begins and ends with Zion, Holy Mount Zion, and Dylan. Let's go to battle.
If you were to get to ask Sean McVay one thing at the coaches clinic that he's going to be speaking at here in a little bit, what would you want to ask him?
What would I want to ask McVay?
Yeah.
How in the hell do you remember every single play call you've ever made since you've been in the sport? Like he did this thing on camera, I want to say a couple years ago. Maybe it was right before or after they won the Super Bowl. And they asked him, hey, Miami Dolphins, 2017, week 13, 3rd down and 4. What was your play call? He knew it. It was one of those weird long plays that you hear Peyton Manning joking about. Banana Y left, John Gruden slot, give him a little waggle, corner rag flag route. How do you remember that? It's one thing to remember your plays. It's one thing to remember the scope and the moment of a big game or a big play call. But a random play that happened 5 or 6 years ago, dude, that's a memory unlike any I've ever seen. He's an offensive innovator. There's so many things. I think him and Sark get in a room and they just giggle because they're like, "Hey, won't you want to try some of that spider too? Why? What do you think about duo on that RPO? Duo and that RPO going together. I mean, those two guys, they're probably hilarious. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. But yeah, I'd ask Sean McVay, how do you remember that kind of stuff? I mean, I get it, but my goodness, that memory is it's amazing.
The unofficial answer for that is productive autism, Justin.
Hey, highly functioning autism. And if that's the case, more power to him. That Sean's he's a G. He knows what he's doing. I love that Sark's bringing him.
Yeah, I was going to say meth, but y'all's answer probably makes more sense.
That's an East Texas answer.
Oh, man. Jay Wells, you brought up winter workouts a couple of moments ago. You mentioned Tia Savea, the transfer D tackle from Arizona. We know you guys are all over this at Inside Texas right now, but who are some other names that you keep hearing about, guys that are standing out a little bit before spring ball gets going?
Yeah, it's still early. Eric Nalin and I are going to have a team-related post Thursday a.m., basically kind of recapping everything that we've been hearing over the last week or so. It's the Underwear Olympics. That's what we like to call it. It's winter conditioning. But what's funny is that even though it's not football, Torrey Becton gets these guys for about a month and a half, almost 2 months, and he tries to get them right before they enter into springtime and Sark and those guys take over. The thing that I think the two names I've noticed the most, one is Ty Anthony Smith, the outside linebacker, late flip from A&M out of Jasper, Texas. Ty Anthony's a guy that he is just a rangy guy. Like he has a wingspan like a condor, and he's got this frame, and his ability to go sideline to sideline is legit. I saw him play in high school, and the first 3 plays of Waco Connolly's series on offense, he made 2 of them sideline to sideline. And you just immediately knew they were trying to run away from him, and he wouldn't allow it. He's like, no, you don't run away from me. I come get you. And so Ty Anthony's showing a good work ethic. He's keeping his head low. He's keeping the intensity and the enthusiasm high. I think he's a guy that people need to pay attention to. And I'll give you a portal guy, Andrew Makuba. Like, I know we can go through each one of these portal guys, and each one of them has their own skill set. You know, each one of them can bring an interesting array of skills to their position. But, man, when Jahdae Barron decided to come back, that secondary got ridiculous. Because 2 years ago, they're trying to put an influx of athletes, move Keaton Crawford back there, try to get some more athleticism back there. Now they're full of it. And you've got guys with experience. Makuba can play some safety. He can play some nickel. He's a guy that if you talk to the recruits in the 2025 and 2026 classes, a lot of what these Texas coaches want are guys that are interchangeable. It reminds me of Dwayne Aquina. You know, of course you want the corner because the corner is the hardest thing to find, and you're a corner before you're a safety or a nickel. But if you can play 2 or 3 of those spots, Texas is running out 5 DBs on a regular basis in any defensive set. That gives those guys more opportunities. I know 2 guys that are really busting it. Freshmen are Kobe Black and Jordan Johnson-Rebel, both early enrollees, both highly motivated guys. Kobe at 6'2", over 2 bills, playing corner. Jordan Johnson-Rebel, kind of more of that compact guy, 5'10", 5'10.5", Quandre Diggs type. Can play some nickel, can play some safety, really smart, just a really, really good kid. And so, it's early. They're not popping pads yet, but just how they approach day-to-day stuff. time management, class management, friend management, football management, how they're doing that. These young freshmen and these portal guys, they came to work. And that just shows you Sark has a type. And if you're an early enrollee, like 80% of the class of 2024, there's a good chance you're going to see the field early. And I think that's what Sark's looking for in this culture.
Guys who are not only talented, but also the hardest workers on the team. Yeah, it's that capital C culture word once again. And on Barron, Justin, we've talked about in the past, that was huge for what this Texas defense is capable of this coming season, because he was a defensive MVP through the first half plus of the season. The last part was a bit of a struggle, though. How much did that play into his decision to ultimately come back to Austin for one more year?
That's a great question. Don't forget, this guy was injured twice.
Yeah.
He played hurt twice. He had no business being in that Houston game.
No.
None. He had to come in and play corner at that. That's how good he is. Barron is so valuable. And I like it just because it's also another leader. Like, you had vocal guys last year. Sweat, Murphy, Jalen Ford. You had your vets, Christian Jones. Barron was in that mix. But now with that extra year, you get to kind of hopefully have some overlap with that leadership. I think Barron came back because maybe he didn't get the NFL grade he wanted. Or in some instances, like with Quinn Ewers, he just enjoys going to Texas. He wants to enjoy the college experience. He has no hurry and no rush to become a professional. In the NIL era, I think you're going to see more of these guys do this. Because it's a better, you're not trying to cash a ticket today. It's a better long-term investment. And if anybody that knows Jahdae, listen, that is a smart, analytical kid. Like, he hits the stock market. He knows about stocks and bonds and all sorts of things. Like, this guy is going to be successful in whatever he does. So you get Barron back there with Makuba, with a Derek Williams a year older, with a Michael Taft that's can do a little bit of everything, not to mention two really, really good corners in Terrence Brooks and Malik Muhammad. And that secondary all of a sudden becomes real, real nice. And I think Barron coming back was a combination of maybe he's not in a hurry to go to the pros. Maybe he didn't like that draft grade. And maybe he just wants to be healthy in his final year, because he was dinged up pretty bad twice that we know about during last season.
And BK, that was a great point about his leadership next season. He's a guy whose voice was so valued coming into this most recent season that he was a part of that group that went to Jerry World for Big 12 Media Days in July.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll be back next year as well. Justin Wells of Inside Texas joining us right now. Jay Wells, your thoughts on Sark's contract? We found out a couple of weeks ago he was getting a new deal, but over the holiday weekend, we found out exactly what that deal was going to look like. Now that you know everything that it entails, what are your big takeaways and big thoughts on the new contract?
Do you ever remember one of those early season episodes of Family Guy? And it was Brian, the dog, who's him and the baby are the best characters. And Brian's sipping a martini and he's peeing on the corner. And he's singing, money, money, money. And he can turn around and he's like, to me, it's one of the funniest things. That was Sark when he figured out what that contract was going to entail. I want to say, and Joe Cook did a great job of putting this all together. Go ahead and check him out at InsideTexas.com and the Inside Texas YouTube football channel. I think it was deserved. I think Texas isn't going to be beat out on money when it comes to these type of jobs and these types of positions. I think Sark was coveted. You'll have some Alabama fans that really just don't know anything about their own program tell you that, Kalen DeBoer was the first guy on the list and that's who they wanted. Nah, bro. Sark was first on that list. Sark and Dan Lanning, actually. And so CDC had to work kind of quick. Nick Saban's retirement pushed us forward. Regardless, he was going to get paid. No matter what Nick Saban did in Tuscaloosa, he was going to get paid. But that I think it expedited the process. Now he's third, fourth highest paid guy in college football. Listen, in this era of college football, with NIL, with portal, with re-recruiting your own guys, with continuity, trying to keep continuity on your staff, because we're seeing an influx of college football coach head to the NFL for numerous reasons. Sark has been able to calm the waters in Austin. He's got the perfect disposition and temperament for this gig. And I think everybody understands that. And I hate to bite something from Tom Herman, but this place is aligned. Everybody is on the same page. It's Sark's voice. He's the number one voice in this program. He oversees everything. I think it was worth it. They gave him a few extra years, and I'm always leery about when you start talking 6-7 years into contracts, because we saw a contract down in College Station not too long ago that was probably the worst contract in the history of sports ever. And you saw how foolish that was. But here's the point. Sark has proven his mettle. Sark has incrementally gotten better every single season. His recruiting has gotten better every single season. Who he picks in the portal gets a little bit better every season. Now they got 11 guys headed to the combine. There's a good chance they're going to have 8 or 9 guys at the combine next year. You're potentially looking at 15 to 20 guys that could be drafted over the next 2 to 3 seasons from this program, which sells recruiting more than anything. Steve Sarkisian got paid because he's doing a great job, and he got a little bit extra because he's not done. Don't forget, he's obsessed.
Justin, college football feels wide open right now because there's a slight dearth in really good head coaches, or at least guys who have that proven track record, especially with Saban and Harbaugh leaving for different reasons over the last couple of months now. What coaches in college football would you take over Steve Sarkisian right now? Kirby?
Dang. I don't think you've ever stumped me before, and you've tried. Man, that's a great question. Once Saban and Harbaugh are out of the mix, I think Sark is probably for Texas. It's Sark. Now Kirby could come to Austin and win, obviously, just like he's winning in Athens. But Sark is built for this. He runs this place like an NFL program. And I think that experience with the Falcons and what he went through has actually only helped him, especially hanging out with Saban for a few years in Tuscaloosa, putting out the best offense that college has ever seen. Kirby Smart might be the only guy that I'd have to raise my brow a little bit and think about, because Kirby's going to build a pretty huge defense, whereas Sark's going to build a pretty dynamic offense. They're kind of two different guys in that sense. So you kind of, you got to pick your poison. But I can't think of a guy, Trey. And I know there are a couple guys that I would put right under him. Kyle Whittingham. I'm a big fan of him. I think Dan Lanning's doing some really good things in Oregon. But man, outside of Kirby Smart, you're right. There's not a lot of coaches that are even coaching that have titles. It's one of those things where Dabo Swinney won a few, 5 or 6 years ago, and you thought that trend would continue, but he went the Mac Brown route, where it's a slow decline instead of a steady pace or even a more of a trajectory. And so I can't think of – there's not one guy I would rather have in Austin than Sark. But overall – you're looking at Sark and Kirby Smart, and those are the two guys that are always going to get the phone calls when these coaching jobs come open. And they're also the two guys that are going to return the call with thank you, but I'm at the very best place I can possibly be right now. I don't think you can do much better than Sark. I know that sounds early and rash, but he's just from top to bottom in this era of college football, he just seems to understand every aspect.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting name with Whittingham. Ultimately, you're probably right, though, in large part, not just because of the on-field success or the recent on-field success, but because of that temperament. And that's why it does seem like Kirby Smart, on top of the football acumen, might work here, is because the Georgia and Texas temperaments are very similar, BK.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Kalen DeBoer, Justin? That was a name Trey and I talked about this morning. Obviously fit has to be taken into consideration, but I feel like I have to mention his name because of what he's done against Sark these last 2 years. Where would you put him?
Hey, give Kalen DeBoer all the credit.
Yeah.
First off, he's 2-0 against Sark. And don't think Sark doesn't have that in the back of his mind. Secondly, everywhere DeBoer has gone, he wins.
Yeah.
At every level. If anyone earned that Alabama opportunity to follow Saban, it's Kalen DeBoer. I really do. I really do believe that. The only reason I still pick Sark over that is because building around a school in Washington is a lot different than building a program in Texas. Huge difference. I wouldn't say Grand Canyon, but some large mountains. There's a difference there. And so now if DeBoer gets to Tuscaloosa and starts running off 12-1, 13-1, 12-2 seasons, I might have to revisit my answer because Kalen DeBoer does an amazing job. But I think DeBoer was the product of a really good 2-year run where he had a veteran quarterback that had played 40 or 50 college games. He had 3 NFL wide receivers, one of which Texas Tech just blew off and let leave for whatever reason. I guess he wasn't on brand in Lubbock, and Jalen Polk. And so I think it was kind of a mixture of a lot of good fortune and just, knowing, Michael Penix from his Indiana days, knowing the right people. I wouldn't put Kalen in that category just yet, and I don't want to bemoan anything he's done because, again, he's 2-0 against Texas in the Sark era, so he's doing something right, but he hasn't had to build a program like Texas. He hasn't, and at Alabama, all he's doing is really getting the keys to the car. Do you notice that they take the pictures, and there was that one picture in Saban's office that we always saw, and it was the painting behind him of Trent Richardson scoring a touchdown against Texas in that Rose Bowl where he won his first national title. You notice that? That is in every single picture Saban would take with parents and with players and things of that sort. DeBoer's there now. That picture's gone. That picture's not there anymore. Now it looks like it's a painting of Nick Saban resembling Jesus. Like it's got the long hair and he's got a lighting system over the top of it. And I'm wondering if he has to go to the altar, every morning. I'm not going to get on Kalen because he is taking over the premier program in college football and has been for the last 15 years. Let me see what he does in the first 2 seasons with that takeover of that team and the mix up of that team. Right now, I still have Sark ahead of him.
All right. Trey, any more for Jay Wells?
Nick Saban statuettes that have his arms out like a T are at an all-time high in sales at the Tuscaloosa Walmart, guys. Justin, college football just altered ever so slightly the expanded playoff and what that's going to look like for at least the next couple of years, going from 6-6 to 5-7. Seems pretty obvious to everybody with what the Pac-12 currently is or isn't, that whittling that down to 5-7 is a good idea. What do you think, though, about the 4 byes going to the 4 highest ranked conference championship game winners, potentially excluding a really good team from one of those conferences who may be ranked in that top 4 at the end of the season?
That is one of the ultimate questions that we're looking at, because here's my problem with this playoff stuff. How do they know what works if they keep changing it every couple years? There's only small sample sizes of what they did to get to a national championship, to get the bowl situation back from the BCS days. So for me, I don't think they're done, because I think there's so much money to be grabbed in this doing this way, which other college football levels, D2 and all that, FCS, all that, they do, FBS, they do all that too. And so call me when they figure it out, because I don't know if this is going to be the system or not, because what's going to happen are people going to gripe about, well, why was so-and-so ranked so high to get a bye when their strength of schedule wasn't as good? And why are you taking Liberty at number 11 when they were the highest rated, non-P5 team, but the number 12 was, one of the big dogs in the SEC, and an LSU or an Ole Miss or somebody? Like, no matter what, there's going to be arguments and there's going to be chaos. I just feel like they should settle on a playoff and live with it, because then you can start to build traditions. Then you can start to see a continuity. Then you can start to see, okay, right after Christmas, we got playoff games. New Year's Day, we got even more important playoff games. And then coming in mid-January, we get the big games. Give us something, let it be, and then let's figure out if that's the best route to do it. I just feel like they change it so much, it's hard to get a good read on what's best and what's not best.